Hey, welcome back to the shop. Yeah, I know. It's been forever, hasn't it? I'm sorry. It's my fault. I've been really busy. First of all, as you know, we moved, and then after that, there was like a whole bunch of stuff that needed to happen to this shop before it would become worthy of being able to work on airplanes and things in here. So I'll go over that at some point. But right now, today, I just want to let you know I'm okay. And don't worry about me and stuff like that. Everything's been fine. I've seen some of the comments where people have wondered, hey man, has this guy kicked the bucket or something? No, haven't kicked the bucket, but I've just been really busy. And I'm sorry for that. But now I kind of want to get back into the groove of things. And once again, you probably recognize this. This is the Rebel. She's up on her feet. And I'm working on certain pieces of it right now. So let's get to it. As you can see, we got the Rebel sitting on her feet on this bench. This is bench number 1 of 2. At some point, I'll show you all the different things I had to do to this shop to get it ready. A lot of it was just cleaning it out. I mean, there was tons and tons of gallons of old paint that I had to, you got to do a weird thing. Anytime you have like a partial or a full gallon of paint and it's no good anymore and you want to take it to the dump, but it's still liquid, you have to pour this stuff into it to solidify it. Then you can take it to the dump and it's okay. It turns it into a solid. They don't like liquids in the dump, but solids are okay. So there was like, I think there was 25 gallons that I had to do that to. So that took a while. I had lots of tile, remnants from flooring, all that kind of stuff just stacked all over in here. So I had to get that all cleaned out so I could move the airplane stuff in here. But here we are. And this is the Rebel, as we know. So far, what I'm working on this week is I've got the engine mounted up on the front, and I'm also working on the gas tank system in here. And I wanted to kind of show you something. This is a different kind of gas tank than I'm used to. So let's talk about that. All right, this is a tank that, this is pretty typical to the tank I've been using for about 30 years now. This is a simple 2-pipe going in setup. The top one there is typically where we would put the ventilation line. And then the second one here is the one that goes to the clunk, which is running all the way to the back here. I'll pull it apart in a minute and you'll see it. But for the most part, this has been a pretty simple setup that I've used on planes for ever since my first plane. This will work well for a glow engine because you can use the vent here and hook it directly to the exhaust pipe. So it will provide pressure into the tank to push it out through the tube. It's because the carburetors that are on glow engines, they don't have a pump on them. So they're kind of reliant on the air blowing from the muffler of the airplane into this tube and kind of releasing the pressure. So this is not a vacuum. I don't think it puts a whole lot of poundage of pressure in there, but enough so that the fuel will flow out of the pipe. Completely different than what we need for a 2-stroke gasoline engine like we're using on the Rebel here, because it has its own pump right at the carburetor. We don't really need to have air pumped into it, so all we need this vent to do is just go to somewhere on the outside of the airplane and let air in, so that when the pump is pulling the fuel out of the lower pipe, what will happen is it will replace it with outside air to release this and not form a vacuum. So you won't have a pump fighting against the vacuum tank situation. That's what we're doing here. So anyways, this one has 2 pipes on it. A lot of them have a 3rd pipe so that if you wanted to put a 3rd one in there just for filling, like if you didn't have access to fill this particular nipple through the clunk into the engine bay, you could attach yet another pipe in here and you'd have 3. So let's take a look at what this looks like. I'm going to pull it apart. And as you can see, it's got the pipes going to the inside. So this is the clunk pipe. This is what's going to the carburetor. And here's the ventilation tube. And all we do is we kind of put the ventilation tube up as high in the tank as we possibly can. So when you go to fill up the tank, it will fill it up and eventually it'll fill up to the ventilation tube, which should have a pretty full tank at that point. And yeah, that's the way that works. So let's see here. What else? The way that this attaches is, there's only one hole in this tank right there. The way this attaches is we have the two pieces of plastic here, and this is a rubber stopper. Very important if you're using two-cycle gasoline. You need to have a rubber stopper, not the one that they put in here for silicone, which is some other kind of rubber, but the gasoline will eat that. So you got to make sure you find, they do offer them for most tanks, a rubber stopper that fits on here for gas use. And so anyhow, the way that this works is you take and put all this stuff back in here. It's kind of tricky here. Okay, get all that shoved back in there. I'm not going to do it because that thing's a bear. See how expanded it is and trying to shove it in there, but it all goes in there. And then you turn this screw down, and what it does is it pulls these two pieces of plastic together and squishes up this piece of rubber here so it holds in. And that's the complexity of a typical two-cycle. You're looking at like Dubro or Sullivan. This is neither one of those, but anyways, that's pretty much the setup for it. So let's bring in what I'm gonna put in this plane. Now, like I said, this came from my flying buddy Mark. He's been using these for a few years now. And I just thought I'd give it a try to see what they're like. First of all, they don't have any rubber parts in them. And it's got, you can see here, it's actually got 3 different nipples on it for hooking up to the fuel line. So this one here is going to go directly to the carburetor. This one here is used for filling the tank. And this one here is the ventilation. So this is the one that's going to provide just outside atmosphere to release any kind of a vacuum or anything that goes in there. So let's take a look at this. A little bit different setup. This has a screw-on lid. And there is no, if you look in there, there's no rubber of any type. And I've always thought that rubber over the years, when it's exposed to two-cycle gas, kind of falls apart and will eventually leak, which is not what you want to have happen. You can see here it's got a clunk on the back. This is a really cool clunk. I think they use these on chainsaws typically because they've got this piece of cotton here, and that'll help keep from sifting crud from your fuel into your carburetor. So really cool. All right, so let's take a look at these nipples. So like I was saying before, here's the fueling nipple. So when it comes to filling up the tank, it's going to come in through this one. I'll run it to a pipe that'll go to the side of the airplane. And let's see if we can see in there and make it so you can see what that looks like. You see that tube there? It attaches to the back side of this nipple inside the tank and goes all the way down to the floor so that it's touching the floor. And I put a clunk on it to make sure that it holds that position. It'll stay down there. I think you can see it. Yeah. And then here's, of course, the ventilation. And it, if you look at it, is just flush to the top. It has no probe going down into there. This is it. Very simple design. So when you go to set this tank up, you can put these on any of the flat surfaces depending on how you want to orient the tank in the airplane. And so I put one here. That's right in the center. And I think I wanted to put the ventilation to where it should be at the highest point. Now, when this plane is sitting on the ground being fueled, the tail will be back here. So it'll be resting downward at a slight angle. So theoretically, if I'm filling it up with this tube here, it's going to fill up, and eventually this will be the highest point where this vent is. That'll be the highest point on it. There'll be an air bubble there, and that'll be the very last piece before this thing is completely full. And then the indicator to tell me the tank is full is when it will actually shoot a little bit of the fuel from the overflow out the side of the airplane. So that's how you'll know that it's ready, that it's fully fueled up. So that's pretty much the design. This goes in here. It tightens back into position. The clunk is all the way to the back where it needs to be. And yeah, that's pretty much the design. Very clever. I'm going to try this out. I mean, the nice part about it is, you know, I had to drill several different holes into it, but shouldn't have any wearing parts to it. And, oh, I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. See that one piece that I had going down to the bottom and put a clunk here for the fill? The reason why you need to have that, and so that it has a, I mean, you could just say, well, shoot, you could have 2 of these vents and fill up the tank that way, and it really wouldn't matter. And it doesn't until you go to pull the fuel out at the end of the day, because if you didn't burn off all the fuel in the tank, which happens a lot, with this thing going all the way to the bottom, all I have to do is lift up the tail and maybe lift up the one wheel on the side of the plane, on the bottom of the plane, and this will have the clunk in the very deepest part of the tank at that point, and I can get all of the fuel out. Yeah, so it's pretty clever design. So this is going to go in the into the Rebel. I usually set them on a foam piece of pad underneath it, and to help it keep from foaming. I actually don't know if 2-cycle gasoline fuel foams, but that oil and alcohol glow fuel we used to foams a lot. So I don't know if it helps or not, but maybe it's just an old building habit. Anyways, that is what the tank looks like and how it operates compared to a typical two-pipe tank. And this is from Bennett and Bennett, B&B. I'll put their address for their website, and they've got a lot of parts for 2-cycle engine and gas systems. They've also got a great smoker system you can attach to a lot of 2-cycle engines if you want to have a set of smoke tanks running out of your airplane. So I'll go ahead and put that in the description below. Yeah, let's put it in the plane. One last thing I wanted to show you is these are remote fueling and venting probes. Probes? I don't even know if that's a word. Anyways, the way that these work is the tubes from inside the plane. What you want to do is you don't want to take the wing off every time you want to fuel your airplane. Instead, what you want to do is you want to take these, and the way these work is, say that this is hooked to the fuel line, the filling line. What you would do is drill a hole in the side of the airplane, and this is something that just passes through the wall of it, and then you would put this nut on and tighten it down until it was nice and stiff and held onto the side. And then when it comes time to fuel it, this is a little cap that goes on there. And you would take that off and plug your fuel tube from your pump, your fueling pump, into this. It's going to go ahead and shoot the gasoline in here through this, up the tube, and into that filling port that we put on the tank. And so that would be for that. And then after you're done filling it up, you'd put this back on, and you go fly it. Perfect. Now, say this one is for the vent. We're going to mount this underneath the airplane, and it's the same thing. You know, that's just going to go up through the plywood on the bottom, the underside of the airplane, pass up through there, and you're going to tighten it down once again with the nut. And you're going to go ahead and slip the tubing that came from the vent nipple on the gas tank from the inside. This one. And same thing. When you go to fly, you want to take this cap, and the tricky part is don't lose this, because what this cap does is you want it off while you're flying so that it lets air in. So I guess you would like put this in your pocket, or maybe I like to carry magnets inside my flight box for various types of like the nuts and bolts and stuff like that you have to screw onto an airplane. If you put them on a magnet, you'll find them all the time. Otherwise, they'll roll around in your flight box. But when you go to fly, you go ahead and pop that open. You've got an open airway. And then after the day is done and you've flown your plane and you're ready to put it away after you get all the fuel out of it and so forth, you can go ahead and put this back in there on the underside of the plane, and it will keep any residual fuel that might be in the vent line or anything like that from leaking out in your car or truck bed or whatever. So that's what these are for. Like I said, you have to order these separately. They don't come with the tank. So keep that in mind. But these are something that I'll go ahead and mount them on the plane, and I'll show them to you when they're in their mounted position so you can see exactly what I was just talking about. But anyways, thought I'd check in with you today just to let you know that everything's okay. I'm working on planes finally, and flying season is coming up here. It's snowing today, but you know, it's hopefully not going to be snowing in June. Jeez, we'll see. So thanks for stopping in and checking in on me, and hopefully we'll be getting back to work on these a lot more often now. So take care and get building.
I remember what I'm fighting for. Oh, the victory cannot be denied. You're the fire in my bones. Oh, the song upon my soul. And I gotta let the whole Every night when the moon is shining, I pray you'll be coming back for more.
No, you poked me. What is it? You got. There you go. Oh, and I also want to let you know, Kitty's okay too, right? She is not amused. Yeah. Okay. To the floor.
Come and settle down a while. Tell me everything you're praying.